Good afternoon, everybody. You're very welcome to this 12 Ronnie's session with me, Christopher Norris from 12 Ronnie's, and my guest today is Anna Goodwin from Heart Centered Business. So, Anna, would you just like to introduce yourself briefly, and then we can start on the conversation that we've got planned?
Yeah, thanks so much, Chris. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. So for those of you watching right now, we want this session to be as useful as possible. Yes, I'm the Managing Director at Heart Centered Business, and this is where our whole premise is we really want to be able to help people get into action and get paid what they're truly worth. So if you have a skill or an expertise, something that you are great at, but you're not managing to make it work financially, stay tuned.
Thanks, Anna. Okay, so today's session is about getting your first 5 clients. Now, we're just going to have an organic conversation about the issue, but if you have questions that crop up during the half an hour that we've got until 4:30 in the UK, or 11:30 in the morning on the East Coast, or 8:30 in the morning on the West Coast of the States, then just simply put them in the comments and we'll see them, and then we can answer them in real time. So please do that if you would like to. So Anna, getting your first 5 clients. So where would you say that people should start?
So, I mean, there's loads of different ways to get started, but the way that I find works really well for the clients that we work with is to think about your business as not being the what you do, but the who you help. So I know out there you'll be super passionate about all the skills that you've got and the training that you've done, and all this kind of theory behind what you're doing and how you can help people move forwards. But I actually want you to put all of that to one side and start to think about, okay, well, who are these people? Who might I be able to help? What are their challenges? What are their struggles? What's the thing that's going on for them right now that means they really, really need some help, and they're going to invest in themselves to get some help in a different way to move them forwards and get a different outcome?
Okay, so how would you go about finding these people at a very basic level?
On a very basic level. So first of all, you really have to be able to identify what these people are. So if you think about who they are, so, really good list. So if you're watching this right now, get a pen and paper out. A really good list to write down is, number one, who do you really love working for? It's really important. You're going to spend a lot of time in your business working with your clients. So you might as well choose which clients you really love working with. So that's the first thing. Number two is think about, okay, well, who can I get amazing results for? So, with the skills that you've got, you might not be the absolute best in the world yet. You're getting your first 5 clients and you're getting things moving, you're getting things off the ground, but who can you help right now and get really great results for? So that's question number 2. Question number 3 is then, who has got a challenge that needs solving right now? Because if they know they've already got something that needs to be fixed in one way, shape, or form, not that any of us are broken, but they've got something that they want to be able to figure out to move them forwards. It's got to be something that's a must-have problem that needs solving right now, over and above a nice-to-have problem. Does that make sense, Christopher? That we just really get clear on that to start with.
But so how do you find out what problems people have got that are actually going to earn you some money? Because that's obviously the important thing if you're launching a business. You've got to sell things.
Absolutely. It's really important. So one of the conversations I have with our clients over and over again is have a conversation. So I know, yes, I'm the managing director of Heart Centered Business now, but I was one of their students. So 8 years ago, I'd been trying to get my business off the ground for about 4 years. And I was where some of our clients are when they start. And I might be where some of you guys are right now. So I hope that you haven't spent 4 years trying to get the business off the ground. But if you have, don't worry, keep going. But essentially, the conversation I have with people over and over again is you've got to have more conversations. Right. So if you are solving problems for people, then you have to build relationships. So you might want to write this down. You might want to write down, I am in the relationship building business. You thought you were in a different type of business, but no, you're in the relationship building business. As are you, Chris. We are both in the relationship building business.
Everybody is, yeah. I mean, there's a mantra that I picked up from a book called the Clue Train Manifesto years and years ago, which was markets are conversations. And the bit that I add is that businesses are relationships, which is exactly what you just said. So
it really, and I think when people get that, then instead of kind of closing the blinkers down and staying behind the laptops and trying to figure out their websites and their branding and their colors and the social medias and the lit and the emailing lists that go out, rather than kind of hiding, which is, by the way, what I did, because that's what I thought you were supposed to do. Instead of hiding behind the laptop, just kind of trying to figure it all out and get it all right, instead, get out there and talk to people, start to create relationships, and ask questions. What's the biggest challenge for you right now? What does life look like? How are you managing? What are you finding difficult? If you're having conversations with people and you're asking people questions, then you'll start to figure out actually who your clients are and what's going on for them.
Right. So yes, I agree. It's important to ask questions and do research.
Yeah.
So how would you go about building, that data into something which is more like a product or a service that you could offer to people?
So, well, depends on what type of business you're building. So if we talk about products and we talk about services, so as you are listening right here, sitting at home, maybe first think about what type of business you're actually building. So there are typically two types of businesses out there. So if you imagine on one side, and by the way, they're both brilliant business models and they both work really, really well, but you want to be able to have a clear distinction between the different type of business that you're building, because that will then change the type of marketing that you do, and that will change the conversations that you have and how is best to build up those relationships. So on one side, you've got mass market businesses. So these mass market businesses, they are typically products. They're things that we can easily buy. So, the important part over here is that people know that they can self-buy. So they look at something and they go, oh, yes, click, I want that. So I was buying some things the other day. I went to go and try and find them. I was comparing on price. And then I thought, oh, great, I know what I want. I'll buy that, and I'll buy it based on price. So if you're building a mass market business that's purely based on people self-buying, and you can scale it really easily, it doesn't really have much impact on your time, then fantastic. That's one type of business. On the other side, which is most service-based businesses, if you are building a premium service business, the focus over there is on sales. If you're building a premium service business, your clients don't actually know what they need until they have a conversation with you. So if you imagine, I don't know, I've twisted my ankle or something like that. And if I twisted my ankle, I want to be able to run in the downs again. whatever your example is out there for those people watching, think about your clients. If I want a mass market business, if I go to a mass market business, I'll buy something based on cost, but that might not necessarily fix my problem because I'm not an expert.
Right.
So in order to have a conversation, if you have a conversation with me, if you're an expert out there, I'll then be able to understand that, oh, guess what? My ankle's connected to my body. All the way up. Also, what's going on in my head might have an impact as well. And in which case, I don't just need 3 sessions that are going to click and massage something. Actually, I need something that's much more long term to be able to get me what I want. That's a different type of business that you're building. So you're solving much bigger problems. So if your guys are out there and you're thinking about the difference between these businesses, first of all, know which type of business you're building.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you, Chris?
No, I think so. We had a question which I'm keen to share because
great
question. So this is from Simon.
Where do we find
online audience? Yeah, to have conversations.
with. That is a brilliant question, Simon. Thank you. So Simon, think about what type of business you're building, because it might be, so if you're building a mass market business, then being online marketing wise is the absolute perfect place for you to be. If you're building a premium service business and you're thinking about online audiences to have a conversation with, and if we're thinking of, depends on where you are in your business, Simon, but if we're talking about building your first 5 clients, you probably haven't quite had enough conversations with people to be able to transfer real life conversations online yet. And it might not be that for your clients, having an online conversation is right for them anyway. So it's a bit difficult. So we've got to try and figure out how to have more conversations with people, and we're either getting them offline or we're starting with them offline.
Okay. So let's assume we've got something that we're ready to sell. We've done the testing, we've done the research, we've done, our business model canvas, we've done our value proposition canvas. We know who the clients are or the potential customers, because like you say, we've had conversations. How do you get to that first client? What is it that how do you persuade somebody to part with their money? The very first person, let's say, because that's the most difficult person to get.
Yeah. So if we think about, Chris, can I back up a little bit because that's actually to try to get to that point. There's a few things that need to happen along the way.
Okay. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Break it down. Yeah.
So if I break it down a little bit, because that might be easier if people are kind of wanting to do this for the first time. So if you're doing this for the first time, your business is 3 things. Okay. So number 1, it's marketing. Number 2 is sales. And number 3 is delivery. Okay. So if you keep all of those things nice and separate, number 1 in marketing, if you are marketing and you are A, getting attention, and B, generating interesting conversations, i.e. you're in a relationship, you're asking what the biggest challenges are. And when you get to that little bit where you think there might be something that you can help with, at that point, you can then move them from a marketing conversation into a sales conversation. And ideally, it's a different time. And then in a sales conversation, so when you talk about persuading, I'd rather not do any persuading. I'd rather do figuring out whether or not you are a match to work together. And so if you're in a sales conversation and you're trying to figure out whether or not you're a match to work together, you're then structuring your sales conversation to be able to figure out whether or not they have a problem that you can solve, and you are a value match to be able to go on that journey together. Right. So if we're thinking, does that make sense, Chris?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
So then in that sales conversation, if you imagine your sales conversation, is 45 minutes. Clearly I'm a talker. I struggle to do any sales under 45 minutes. But actually in real terms, people buy emotionally and then they back it up logically. So if you've not asked the questions that help people tap into the emotional side of what's going on for them, then they'll find it really difficult to make that state change, to go from I can't ever change this to, oh my goodness, something else is possible. I could do something different. And that creates it creates a change in the body. But if we've not tapped into the emotional side, it's really difficult to be able to then say yes.
Right. Yes. So you're saying that people will only buy once they've made an emotional connection to what it
Yeah.
is you're offering. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
What not what it is that we're offering, but
yes.
what change would be like for them if they
Yes.
could get it.
Well, I was thinking, but maybe that's why you're called heart-centered business, I suppose, because that's that emotional connection, isn't it? So
Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
absolutely. I
yeah,
think
I've
never
got
thought that, but yeah, you're right.
you have another question from another of
Oh,
our
great.
uh, um, people who come along. So this is Hannah. And
Great.
Hannah says, is it possible to have a business that's facing in two directions, one that's mass market and the other one that's a premium business?
That is a great question, Hannah, and I'd love to delve into that a bit more. Essentially, um, so the only times I've seen this working really well is when actually the mass market product has been feeding into the premium service business. So, for example, we have a book. So, I'll share it at the end. You can look at getting it if you like, if you want to. But that is, yes, it's a product. Yes, it's a mass market product, but it's also our way of being able to. It's a bit like a really fancy business card, and so that yes, we might market that, but that's not actually the business that we're running. But everything within that book would talk about things that will open people's minds up to what else is possible. Essentially, if I was to give you a very short answer, it would be no, pick. Because what tends to happen is people we find are in the middle. And if you're in the middle, then you are too expensive for the. So, Hannah, if you can let us know what you think about this, because that'd be great to know. So, if you're in the middle, people will typically say, oh, no, you're too expensive, because those people are wanting to compare you with other people who might do something similar, but they don't know. They don't know you. They don't really understand what's going for them either, because they're not the expert, you are. But if you have people saying that you're too expensive, that's usually what's going on there. But if you're in the middle also, you're not solving a big enough problem for the people who need a premium service, because it's not a big enough problem you're solving because you haven't had an interaction with them yet. So if people are bang in the middle, it doesn't tend to work, but it might work if you're building one business and then you're strategically funneling something through to make like having a book, but you're going towards building a premium service business. Hannah, does that make sense to you? Chris, did that make sense to you?
Yeah. I mean, it's I think they're two slightly different things in that, but you can offer. I guess you can have like a no frills version of what you're offering, which is available to many people for a lower price. And then if you've got like a white glove service where it's a deluxe version, or maybe they get to talk to you in person rather than it being a kind of online product, then something like that, then
Mm,
the more touch points they've got with you, the more expensive it
yeah,
gets. I think,
yeah.
you know.
It's really good, Hannah, to understand so yes, that's almost like a sort of funnel we're talking about here. But it's really good to understand at what part in the funnel something is marketing and at what point in the funnel something is delivery. Because if you imagine for every conversation that you have, so imagine these are your conversations, um, it's going to take exactly the same amount of time to move people from a one-to-one into something that is high price point, i.e. they're getting lots of service from you, you're solving a much bigger problem. It takes the same amount of marketing to do that as it does to have maybe your group offering or your cheaper offering. But if you've got it, if you know that something is definitely a marketing piece, then it over and above a delivery piece, then it makes you have a much clearer idea about what you want people to get out of the conversations.
That's interesting. Hannah's come back, and
Oh,
I'm just
great.
going to put this follow up on.
Okay,
So,
long response, brilliant.
so Hannah's, just to summarize, she says she's thinking of having a business to consumer business for people managing their mental health, and to have a B2B business with health service to run things for them, like workshops and things. So I guess the book, for example, might help with the workshops, which I think you were touching on.
Yeah, possibly. So the other way of looking at this, Hannah, is instead of B2B or B2C, you could look at it as H2H. So human to human. So because even with B2B businesses, there is a particular human in that business that needs a different level of support. So what can happen sometimes then is you can then have one marketing message, because ideally you want one marketing message. So with regards to marketing, Hannah, if we set ourselves up to be, I know, Hannah, you can probably help all sorts of people. We can often help all sorts of people. However, if we market to everybody, we actually end up by working with nobody or marketing to nobody. If we are really, really specific with our marketing, we can actually generate some really interesting conversations. And then those conversations that we're having can lead to figuring out whether or not we can serve those people or not. So with regards to your B2C and your B2B, slightly different businesses, if you figure out exactly who the person is that you love working with, it might be that sometimes they're in a B2B and sometimes they're in a B2C, and it doesn't matter, because you're talking about that very particular type of person with that very particular type of challenge, and you're helping them get a very particular type of outcome.
I think as well, the implication from B2C is that it's a lot more personal, so that you're, touching the heart of somebody, if you like, who is, got their own individual issues, whereas B2B might be a more generic solution to something, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I tend to find with the people that we work with, actually they think it's more generic until they get into the nitty-gritty of working with those companies, and then they actually figure out that actually it's not. It's actually the individuals, because there is one individual who needs support with X, Y, and Z, and that might impact then lots of people, but there is a particular person who needs that level of support to be able to make all the cogs work in a different way.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I hope that answered your question, Hannah. That's thank you very much for contributing. We have another question, so this is great. We've got lots of lots of people contributing. So here's Naveed, who says that he has trouble meeting people who initially sounded enthusiastic and ready to, to get going, but then they go cold. And he's wondering whether you've got any ideas for that.
Okay, brilliant. And he's a freelance web developer. Okay, fantastic. Love it. Great question, Naveed. Super duper. So the challenges could be in a few different areas. Okay, so the challenge could be, and this is what it's worth you tracking and thinking about the different conversations that you've been having. So sometimes what happens is people mush together marketing and sales conversations. So if you go to a networking meeting or something like that, and you have a conversation with somebody and they seem really, really keen, sometimes we because we're very excited about what we do, we might start to want to mush together the marketing and sales. So there's a couple of things that happen when we do that. Number one is we get lots of false yeses, because people don't know how to say no. But mainly it can work out, it can become a little bit icky because we haven't had permission to sell yet. But what happens when you create a gap between your marketing conversations, which should only be sort of 10-15 minutes long each, and then you create a gap between that and your sales conversation, what happens is you can set the context for the sales conversation. So might be something, let's make sure we put 45 minutes in the diary so we can really look at what's going on for you. We could help figure out what your next action steps are. And if they're together, brilliant, we'll get started. And if you need to work with somebody else or do something different, then we'll figure that out if otherwise. So you're helping people get their head around, oh, in this conversation, I'm going to be taking action. So they come prepared, ready to take some action in one way, shape, or form. The next little thing that might be happening is in your sales conversation is if you've not, when we talked about, right at the beginning, we talked about the emotional piece. If you've not really helped people figure out the emotional cost of either taking action or not taking action, they might find it very difficult to say yes and stick to it. So you might have people who say yes and then go wandering off because it's too difficult to say no. That might be another reason, that actually there isn't the environment to be able to easily say no to you. You might be a very persuasive character and it's difficult to say no to, but actually we have to create that space where we can figure out what people want and what they don't want. So that could also be what's going on, is that people don't feel safe enough to say no. But remember, when people buy emotionally, they have to be able to then back it up logically. So let's say, for instance, that somebody had said yes in your sales conversation, and they're so excited about working with you, and they're, yeah, hooray! And then they go back home again, and they tell their partner, like, oh, I'm really excited about working with this person. It's going to be great. And their partner might turn around and go, God, and how much is that going to cost? And suddenly they're in a spiral of something different. And then if they haven't got the logical piece of what happens if they take action versus not take action, they can quite quickly be switched into, actually, I don't think I need it. I'll just keep going in the way that I thought was kind of working already. So in that sales conversation, it needs time. Yes, you've got to set the context. And you've got to help people get to a hell yes or a hell no, and then really work through the objections. Sorry, Chris, that was quite a long answer.
No,
but it's not a small question, actually.
All I was going to say is that, let's say Naveed is setting up meetings with people via LinkedIn, let's say, and running sort of exploratory, initial conversations for free, let's say for 15 minutes at a time.
Yes.
Essentially, you don't really know people, because you've not taken the opportunity to get to know people at a deeper level. So, a potential client might be prepared to spend 15 minutes speaking to you, to check out what the offer is, but then, it goes nowhere for reasons that Anna has suggested, like they can't afford it, for example, or they've got other criteria as well. So I think maybe a more long-term but potentially better return on investment might be to go to events, either locally or maybe a meetup event, online, where you get to know people over quite a long period of time. And then once you've made friends, you can, and people know what you do, then, they might share a problem that they've got about their website, if they know, it's like the old thing. If people know, let's say you're a doctor and you tell people that you're a doctor, then people are going to say, oh, there's something wrong with my foot or something. They're always going to give you back something in the frame that you've given them. So if you say to people that you're a web developer, then people are going to share things with you anyway about problems that they've got with their own website. So I just get into social environments where you're meeting people who might be potential clients, but don't do the hard sell. Just get to know people.
I think that whole social piece, Chris, is so important. We as humans, we really like to work with people that we know, like, and trust. So how can you get to that point where like, and trust people? Yeah. So one of the best ways of being able to do that is to get out and talk to people. We've got so many ways of being able to communicate, and what we say is only about 7% of that. the how we say, the body language, there are so many ways of connecting with people. And that when you walk into a room, you're like, yes, 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 I like these people. I can really connect with them. And then you feel, and I feel like I've known them for years. And that way you get to know people. But, those people, Naveed, who are really enthusiastic about what you do and how you do it, and then end up by disappearing for whatever reason, help them understand what the challenge is and what happens if they do and they don't. Oh, the last little piece here actually as well is make sure you book up a follow-up conversation. So when you're speaking to people, general rule of thumb is every time I speak to somebody, there's something else in the diary that means that I know when I'm connecting with them next. I am notorious at forgetting things. And when you end up by spinning lots of plates, as all business owners do, you've got to have some systems whereby you can keep the conversations, you can keep developing the relationships. So that sales conversation that you will have had, make sure there's a follow-up in the diary. Yeah. And then what they need from the time between when you're speaking and the follow-up. Is it that they're going to go and talk to a partner? Is it that they, whether it's a business partner or a life partner, is it that something in their life is going to change, which means they need a bit more time to be able to think about it? Typically, when people say, "Oh, I can't afford it," it's get into some more detail. Because if you've helped, it's typically not just that, even though that's kind of what we say. If we connect, but really help them figure out actually what their yeses and nos are, because it also might be that they really need help, but it's not going to be with you, and that's okay. See yourself as the signposter to help them move forwards, even if it's not with you.
Yes, I've got. I'll just show this so that if you want to take a screenshot, Naveed, Hannah actually came back with some advice. So thank you, Hannah. And Naveed, if you want to take a screenshot of this, then at least you can remember what Hannah says, and you can also watch the video afterwards, which will be, I think it's automatically saved as a recording at the same website same URL that you came to the meeting. So I'm just going to, we're near the end. What I would just like to do to wrap up is to, given that we're talking about the first 5 clients, let's say we've got a couple of clients, we've got our 5 clients. How do we make the best use of them? And then we'll close after that with you sharing information about the book and how people can get hold of you. So how do you make use of your first 5 clients, Hannah?
Do an amazing job. Every client always should feel like your only client. Go over and above with your customer service. Figure out what the bigger problems are that need solving, because they are not the experts. They do not know what it is that actually needs to be done. So give them an incredible experience. Go over and above and keep going. Your business is a numbers game. Yes, you're in the relationship building business, so you have to talk to lots of people, but you are in a numbers game. So keep going. Most businesses that we speak to, they have 1 or 2 successes, and then they think that somehow it'll all just keep rolling. You've got to keep repeating it. You've got to keep going. Fall in love with having conversations, because that's what will keep things going. But make every client feel like your only client.
Yeah, and build and continue the relationship with them, because the 80-20 rule says that you spend 80% of your time helping the people that are already your clients, and 20% finding new people. So do things like build a community, maybe invite them to events, offer them discounts if they're repeat people, keep it. There's a thing called the Hawthorne effect, which says that if you change it, it will work, which is a bit like a football manager being a new football manager. The team that they come in to be the manager of usually wins the first couple of games, because
is that right?
Well, simply because people are wanting to kind of impress the new guy, and then everything
That
settles in.
makes sense. I like that. That's good.
And then if they go back to what it was like before, that will work as well, because the change actually
Yeah.
it makes the difference.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Anna, how can people get hold of you? And you mentioned a book earlier on, so maybe you can share something about that as well.
So I think one of the best ways to kind of to help people help people move forwards is by having a conversation. This is what we teach people day in, day out. So of course, I'm going to offer a conversation. So if you're watching that out there and you want to have a conversation, you want to help get the shortcut for the actions that you're taking to get the results that you want, then reach out. One of the best ways to, and we'll put a link in the bio, is we've got this book. Oh, look. There we are. Where am I? We've got this book, Grow Your Heart-Centered Business. It's written by Chris and Corinne Lambert-Gorin, who are the founders of Heart-Centered Business. It is an absolute stonker of a book. If you did everything in the book, it would take you to 250,000. It's amazing. And if the help is on offer, if people are up for giving you a conversation, then just take it. So we'll put the link in the bio, but also when you go on there, you can just request a business growth strategy call, and we'll happily do that for you. It's our pleasure. Our business is helping people move forwards. It's fun.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Anna, for coming along and having this chat with me. And thank you, everybody who came along to the live version of the chat. Especially thank you for your questions and for listening to us ramble on about how to get your first 5 clients. So this is going to be a regular thing, that I'm going to have chats with people about different aspects of business or creativity. So Anna, this was the very first one. So thank you for the first gift.
It was super, Chris. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're guessing my first client, I suppose. So we'll let you know when the next one's going to be fairly soon, and you can get a recording, as I say, of this particular thing on LinkedIn. It's also on YouTube at 12 Ronnies on YouTube, and it's also on Facebook if you want to have a look at it then. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you again soon. So
bye, Chris. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.